So and then this guy comes up behind me, the ODOT's communication director, Patrick Cooney, and he goes, "Get off the mic." He's whispering, but he's pretty coarse, in his whisper, and he's, "Get off the mic."
While you're up there testifying
In front of the commissioners,
and you gave them notice that you were going to be here.
Yeah, and he says, "Public comment period is over," and I go, "I'm sorry, I'm not here for public comment. I'm here as one of the financially impacted parties, who happens to be a member of the general public, but."
Anyone who gets a driver's license has to.
Who legitimately gets, yeah.
Any person.
Okay, right. And let me go into that a little bit more. After the 1985 legislative session, the gal who was the chair of the Transportation Committee, the Joint Transportation Committee, Jane Cease, Senator Cease, took over Mr. Mumau's position as the director of the DMV. And she had been the chair of the Transportation Committee two terms in the House, and she was in her second term in the Senate the year that she passed the optional titling rule. So she knew what was going on. There was only one other gal in the room when that Exhibit B was read, who knew what was going on, besides Joanne, and that was the legislative administrator for the committee, and her name was Claudia Howells, and you could hear her in the background. There was one senator was sharp enough to say, "Well, how many vehicles are involved in this illegal titling scheme?" And Claudia, without a mic, but you could hear her in the background, she said, "I'll go find out for you." And she took off as though she were going to go get that information. And then she never returned to the record with it. So they went all the way through making this bill into a law without the knowledge that they needed to know. And generally speaking, laws are made to address a larger problem. They don't address rare occurrences. They address bigger problems. So that was a crucial problem. That was an important part of their legislative duty, was to find out how many vehicles were involved in this illegal titling scheme. And had they found out that it was, a million plus, in 1985, I think there were about 3 million cars that were owned by the public. And some people had two, so there were probably more like a million.
Who would normally title and register their car? Who?
Persons who do it for compensation or profit.
But Joanne went in and read Exhibit B, and basically she was saying that people.
She uses the term persons.
But she's referring to the general public. Some of them chose to do this, and she wanted to make it okay for the DMV to sell it to
take their money.
To take the money of the general public who chose to title and register their vehicles.
Yes, and choose is the word in the rule. So Jane Cease, when she took over David Mumau's job, she knew, because she got the bill passed, she knew that in order to keep on getting the same revenue, she had to do this. But she didn't get it done. She did spend a lot of money. She said, "Oh, I made a mistake. I need a few more $1 million. maybe I need 5 more million. And she did that several times.
For what? What?
She was updating their computer system.
Okay.
And she kept getting it wrong. She claimed, this was her claim.
For the DMV?
For the DMV,
Okay.
And so she never got the rule adopted that was going to provide for this option for the general public to title their vehicles. And then another director came on. That one was Liz Kroniken. And Liz didn't do it either, not for years, until 2005, almost 20 years later, a couple months short of 20 years. But first of all, probably because I called David Irely, who was the director, the honcho in driver programs, or no, vehicle programs. I'm sorry. There's two major sections of the DMV. One is driver programs, and one is vehicle programs. So he was in the vehicle programs, and I said, "Hi, I'm reading this chapter in the Oregon Vehicle Code, and it's talking about an option to title vehicles. And it sounds like an interesting rule. Could I get a copy of that?" And the guy goes, and he's hesitating for several seconds, and finally he goes, "We decided we didn't want to do it, so we don't have one." I go, "What? Who's we? You and who? Wait, this was your director that went to the legislature and asked for this and spent 5 hours talking to them." Well, actually, it was Joanne Peterson, but she spent 5 hours talking for Mr. Moomow, and you changed his mind?
I mean, she admitted that they were collecting money, and so for 20 years they collected money.
They were still collecting money during that 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, that's right. And they admitted that they had never had the authority before that. And so it was David Irely who ended up writing the rule. The next year, he sent out notice. I called him in late September of 2003. The next year, 2004, he published this thing called a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. And in making rules, you have to say who's going to be financially impacted. So that's called the Statement of Need. And that's another document that everybody needs to get. Statement of Need and Fiscal Impact. And that's the single page out of the whole legislative history when Joanne Peterson was talking to the legislature, starting then up to the point where the rule was finally adopted. The Statement of Need and Fiscal Impact is the only page in all of those pages. There's probably, several dozen, probably 30 to 40 pages of documents. And that's the only page that has these words. And these are the, verbatim sentence. It says, "Only members of the general public who choose to apply for title," and then will be financially impacted. That's my words. But, wow. So you got to get that one. And let me give you the rule number. Rule number. It is OAR for Oregon Administrative Rules 735-022-0120. Okay, so that was adopted, that rule, and I went to the hearing. No one else knew about it. No one sent no one got notice of that. No member of the general public was sent notice. I got the mailing list.
How did you know that there was going to be a hearing?
Well, I had a friend in the DMV
Okay.
by that time, you know.
Okay.
And and you have to give notice. If you want to testify at that hearing, you have to give your notice that you're going to present data, views, and arguments. And so I sent that in. And I said, I want to do that. And I went. And while there, the first question I asked him, I said, and we're talking to the transportation commissioners, the people. The people are in charge of agencies. The people are appointed, though, by the governor. So this was Kitzhaber. And so I asked him, I said, do any of you folks, there were 5 of them, I said, do any of you folks know about this rule that you're going to be voting on today? And they all said no. Sufficiently audible to get on the record, to the audio record. And you can get that record too. That's an excellent record to get. If they didn't know, that meant the DMV was defrauding them as well. So you got to get that record. I don't know, maybe a lot of you would like giving money to the DMV. And I've learned that probably most people do like giving money to the DMV. It's only a few $1,000s a year, so, you know, big deal. No big deal. By the time, and that's including everything. And it's not just the DMV, but we, the general public, pay not only for a driver license and the titling and the registration fees, but we also pay motor vehicle fuel tax, and that tax is in Chapter 319, ORS 319, and we pay for parking. And parking, by the way, is a motor vehicle term. It's in the motor vehicle laws, Chapter 801. See if I can remember that. Can't quite remember the.
It's in
section.
read Chapter 801.
Yeah, you have to read Chapter 801. But it was fun. So and then this guy comes up behind me, the ODOT's communication director, Patrick Cooney, and he goes, "Get off the mic." He's whispering, but he's pretty coarse, you know, in his whisper, and he's, "Get off the mic."
While you're up there testifying.
In front of the commissioners.
And you gave him notice that you were going to be here.
Yeah, and he says, "Public comment period is over." And I go, "I'm sorry, I'm not here for public comment. I'm here as one of the financially impacted parties who happens to be a member of the general public, but I'm..." And then I looked over at the wall about 15, 20 feet over, and this huge guy, who's the director of ODOT, what's his name? Maybe I'll think of it in a minute. He was a long-time enemy of mine. He's about 6'4" and 300 pounds, 3 feet across the shoulders. You know, like he's going to tear my...
And he's up there on the committee?
No, he's
up
on the wall to my right.
Okay. Okay.
And just threatening, you know, telling me, "You better get out of here."
Okay.
And I go, "Oh, I just noticed why I'm going to cut my presentation short. I hope you folks have a chance to open up your information packets that I brought you from state archives before you vote, and you have a good one." And I got out of there.